Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I am Eric Frisch, Deputy Commissioner of Neighborhood and Business Development for the City of Rochester. Appreciate your participation and your interest in this exciting opportunity. Joining me is an illustrious team from the city. I'm going to introduce everyone in alphabetical order rather than asking everybody to introduce themselves. And of course, you'll be seeing everybody at some point over the course of this webinar. First, Wes Grooms, Associate Zoning Analyst in the City Zoning Office. Thank you for joining us, Wes. Kevin Kelly, Manager of Planning for the city. Lindsay Nabozny, Senior Community Housing Planner with our Housing Division. Rick Rinsky, Manager of Special Projects for Business and Housing Development, and also the Project Manager for this special project. Paul Scuderi, Director of Real Estate. Harold Thurston, Associate Environmental Specialist with the city's Division of Environmental Quality. Carol Wheeler, our Manager of Housing. And the guy behind it all, Bill Schwabiker, in our communications office. As I said, this is an exciting opportunity for a transformative investment, really in an unparalleled site in the city and on Lake Ontario at the Port of Rochester in the Charlotte neighborhood. Really appreciate your interest and joining us today. With that, I will turn it over to Rick Rinsky.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining on our webinar here. Yeah, this is an exciting opportunity in a very, I guess I would say just a very historic setting and context for what this site has evolved from what it is now. And of course, with the boost of a lot of efforts through the city of Rochester, the local community, working together as partners. I would like to first get through some background on the site, if you will. And what we'll do is we'll take it from a few words that I'm going to say about the area to some more specific topical areas relative to the site. And with that, hopefully I can get this moving. There we go. Whoop, sorry about that. So these are just some graphics, and folks have opened up the RFP that's on the city's webpage. You'll see a lot of what is in the content of this PowerPoint, and really we wanted to just get the highlights across to you. But it's a beautiful setting on Lake Ontario where the Genesee River meets the lake. This site was settled centuries ago from a purchase from the Senecas, recognized as, from various perspectives, as a major opportunity, first and foremost as a major trading hub because of the river and the lake connection. We've had, it's actually this site, and I don't have a slide specifically for this. When we go back to that one, this site is actually was an integral part of the Underground Railroad. You'll see that described in the RFP as well. And it was built up as a recreational and resort destination. As time moved on, it sort of shared its identity for that, along with industrial development. And here we have a couple of photos. These are certainly testimony to the industrial character of the site in the form of steel mills. Let's see if we can get to, all right. Trying to advance my slide here. I'm having a, all right, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. Again, this graphic you'll see in the RFP document, it's really to highlight the assets in the area of the Port of Rochester, really supporting this overall area as a community as well as a waterfront destination. I won't rattle off all the listings that you'll see on the right there. Again, it's in the RFP, but I think it's worth saying that this is really demonstrating the strength of this area on the Great Lakes. Again, both in the context of a community and as a destination. So with that sort of very general background, I'm going to hand over to Paul Scuderi, our Director of Real Estate, who will talk a little bit more about how this specific site and the area in general were improved and how we sort of tee this up to the RFP opportunity that we now have. Paul?
Thanks, Rick. So glad everybody is here in attendance and interested in the development of the site. We think it's one of our most, what has the most potential for real impactful development. And one of the things that any investor, and I'm assuming all of you would consider yourselves investors, will look at is what are the influences around the area that are going to support my investment into this site. There's a lot of things that have gone into this site, a lot of city investment, a lot of adding on to what's already there. And as you'll go through this, I'm not going to read every little thing that's in the proposal. I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to do that on your own. But what we feel are some of the more impactful influences for this development site are a couple of things that are really, really very proximate. First of all, you can talk about the port terminal building, which is the building that's right along the river. You can kind of see it in the slide that's on your screen. It says Port of Rochester, which is adjoining the marina. We're going to get to the marina. There's a good picture of it there. So this building, for folks who may or may not be familiar with the history of it, kind of built or revamped. It's been there in some states since for quite a while. But in 2004, it was built and specifically for the fast ferry, if you all remember the fast ferry. And 2004 kind of came and went. 70,000 square feet of space was developed for the boat. The boat didn't last a real long time here, but the building has continued to remain, or has remained, and it continues to prosper. The city has made a lot of investment into the building as far as renovating it and doing some normal kind of routine maintenance that any property owner would do, but we've tried to enhance it every time we've done it. Now, one of the things that you all should know is that there are quite a few existing tenants in that building. There's 2 restaurants in there. There's an ice cream store, which I'm not including as a restaurant, but so there's 2 restaurants and an ice cream store. There's a 3rd restaurant that's pending. We're in negotiations now. There's a very large and really busy event planner, event space, who does an awful lot of business there. You'll see a lot of traffic in and out of there as a result of their operations, and there's a small office user as well. So the building is heavily used. The summertime is very active, very busy, from right in the middle of May right through Labor Day and a couple of weeks beyond. The event planner is busy pretty much all year round, so there's good flow of traffic there. Right in front of that, so between the building, the port terminal building that I just described, and the development site that we're all here talking about today, is the city's marina. There's a nice picture of it there. That marina was completed construction in May of 2016. It's a $22 million investment that the city made. If we go on here, and there's actually a really nice website on the city's webpage on the city's website, if you're interested in getting more information about the marina. But the marina included 54 slips, permanent slips, seasonal slips. You can see them in this photo here. There's also room for 25 to 30 transient slips around the edges, around the curves. You can kind of see the ones in this picture. You see some boats docked along the river wall, the marina wall rather. And there's anywhere between 25 and 30 spots for boats, depending on the size of the ships. You can probably get 30 really small ones and varying degrees of boat length. So there's quite a few boats that use it. This marina is really, really, really busy. There's a very long waiting list. People really do like all of the amenities that are included in here. And again, depending on what the nature of the development would be on the city's development site that we're talking about today, this could really be a draw for some of you people. The amenities in this port in the marina are really, really top of the line. One of the most things that you'll hear from people who have boats is that the design of it keeps the people's boats very secure from any harsh water conditions that you would find on the lake. So just the design of it, that curvature coming off of the lake. And this marina offers a lot of amenities. Boater services building, bathroom, showers. There's electric and water and fiber for the people who have their boats docked there, pump out facilities. And there's a really, really nice docking system and new gangways, as you can kind of see in this photo here. And there's on-site marina staff as well. So that alone is a real draw for anybody with a boat. And if there are any boaters in the audience, you know how important some of those factors are. I'm going to just highlight just a couple of things. One of the previous slides that Rick Minsky was talking through talked about the surrounding area and some of the amenities that are here that, again, would be impactful to the development site. Now, we talked about the marina. We talked about the terminal building already. The Genesee River and the channel right there. Yep, thank you. You can kind of see the channel coming in. You can kind of see number 3 there. I guess I'm assuming that, yeah, that's the channel that comes in from the river. And it's an opportunity for recreational boaters. There's not a lot of industrial shipping that comes in and out of this Rochester port, but quite a bit of recreational and a lot of fishing charters come in and out of there as well. Ontario Beach is shown on the map as number 4 and number 5. That's the city-county partnership that we have. So you have water frontage, so you can access the water and go to the beach. There's some other amenities within that, the community centers. There's a Genesee Lighthouse, or the Charlotte Genesee Lighthouse, which is a historic building, not really used for the old lighthouse services like it used to be, but it's still there, and it's a really nice little feature. And then there's also some retail and some services right along Lake Avenue in this immediate area. You'll find a few other things. Again, I won't go through all of them. There is another boat launch just south of the terminal building. And there is just a little bit further south of that, there is another marina, the River Street Marina, which is also, city has some role in that as well, that we partner with the operator with some city-owned space, city land, to extend and give them more seasonal boat slips for their folks. And one last thing I will mention is the Lake Ontario State Parkway, kind of toward the bottom left corner of this map. Is a major thoroughfare. So it's really easy to access this site along the major highways in the general Rochester area. You can come in from the thruway, take 490 up to 390, and that'll take you up to the parkway. So access is very easy to this site from pretty much anywhere. I won't go into too much further detail. You all can take a look at that and kind of do your own due diligence and Google mapping, if that's like a verb out of Google mapping here. You can Google map a lot of these things and see how much there is in this area and the immense potential of this site. So I think with that, I'll wrap up my portion of it, and we can go to some Q&A later afterwards if there's any follow-up on it. I believe next on the agenda is Harold. So Harold, I'll mute myself and I'll give you the floor.
Great, thanks, Paul. I'm going to just talk briefly about the subsurface conditions of this property and the overall area. That's my task. Rick, you want to forward that slide, please? Thank you. So what do we have here? We have a property that was basically industrial, steel mills. Back in the day, with any type of industrial activity, you always generate a waste. That just always was. And how you manage that waste is part of, dealing with the property, looking at industrial property for reuse. Where are the waste materials located? So next slide, please. Ooh, is it coming through?
Are you can see it? Okay.
I see it now. Thank you. So what's the waste material? It's slag, and it's an iron byproduct of production of steel. This figure, what you'll see here in this figure, the site that we're talking about, the property, is obviously right there along Lake Avenue, But what I wanted to show this is two things. One, this property has been assessed, the subsurface has been assessed as part of a much larger assessment that included the entire port area. The figure that you're seeing right there is the extent of the slag and fill material that was identified through the assessment. And you can see in the property that we're talking about, there's a portion of the property that does have this material in the subsurface. So what do we do with this? Well, it's a regulated solid waste, meaning that if you generate it, by generation meaning you excavate it or dig it up, that it has to be managed properly. And it can be managed through several different ways. It could be hauled off site, it could be placed in a landfill. But one of the things that you can do to minimize your cost and really look at beneficial use, basically look for the beneficial use of this material. You go through some permitting process, you determine that if there's a beneficial use for it, either on the site or off site. You can reduce your disposal cost by having it used somewhere else. An example, when the city dug up the marina there, the slag material that's identified in there, when the marina was excavated, that slag material, we found a beneficial use for that slag material. It actually went to a property on ours, and the city used it for the base of a solar field. And so we were able to minimize our costs for disposal by finding a beneficial use and putting it somewhere else. Regardless of all that, the last thing with the subsurface conditions, the environmental issues, is that it can be managed simply through an environmental management plan. Environmental management plan has been put in place. It has been prepared and is part of the package, the RFP package. This environmental management plan just simply says it gives you directions on how to move with the project in a safe manner that's not going to perform harm to human health or the environment, and also manage your material as you're excavating it. So that's the primary concern or issue that you may have in that area. It's very manageable, and it certainly can be managed with the environmental management plan or beneficial use determination on the subsurface material that will be excavated. That's what I have for that. I'm going to pass it on to Wes for your part. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about just the development review process and some specifics about the Civic Square, sort of an unusual requirement of the development in this district. So I know some of you are very familiar with Rochester zoning code. Some I'm not sure, but I wanted to take a couple minutes and just talk about the Village Center District, which is a zoning code within the city of Rochester. And there are several of these sorts of districts scattered throughout the city, such as College Town, Harbor Village, and Public Market. And then this is another one, the Marina District. And in these particular districts, they have each different sorts of requirements and sections, but they are much more regulated and much more focused on form over particular use. And so it's important to, I think, just be aware that the purpose of the Village Center districts is an attempt to recognize and encourage the development of lively, pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use neighborhoods. And there'll be a focus on protecting or producing a variety of uses, variety of housing styles and types, variety of transportation options, and both protecting cultural and historical assets and or creating them through development or redevelopment. The goal of Village Center conditions is to encourage the development of identified urban villages. So naming those off, as I did previously, focused here on Marina, by establishing permitted uses, which are actually pretty open, focusing on densities, design standards, and design review procedures, developed around common themes, perhaps a market niche in the area, as Paul sort of alluded to. That will be governed by each district's design standards and regulations. Approval for projects or the selected proposal would be required to go through minor site plan review which is an administrative procedure in the city of Rochester, unlike some of our surrounding neighboring jurisdictions. Fully compliant proposal. So if you parse the Marina Village Center District very well and apply all the standards accurately in the design of your proposal, it's possible to go through site plan review without having to visit any land use boards or have any other diversions. It still is a process that requires a certain amount of time. It's not like just coming in and getting a building permit at the counter, but it is administrative, and it's possible to get projects approved administratively without public hearings. The Marina District itself, the purpose is really to regulate the standards of the built form over use. It's seeking to foster the creation of a district that will attract visitors, both because of where it's at and hopefully because of the sorts of experiences that people will have that will endure in their memories. Again, it's a heavily form-based code, which is sort of unusual for Rochester code in its whole, but these districts do have a lot more form-based code regulating the development of land in these districts. And there will be, if you haven't had a chance to look at the Marina District Code online yet, you'll see guidance around building standards, building use standards. I'm sorry, building envelope standards, building use standards, specifically the civic square standards and parking and architectural standards, on which there is a lot of guidance depending on the type of building that is being built, and the type of building is regulated in terms of where it can be in the district based on the map. And now I can talk a little bit about the civic square piece in particular, if you want to advance that slide. Thank you. So this is what is referred to as Parcel 1 throughout some of the Marina District Village Center zoning code district language online in the zoning code. And if anyone wants the numbers, if you go to 120-73 is the start of the Village Center District Code, and then 120-77.2 is the one for Marina District. And there is a lot of information. There are a lot of different building types which are permitted in certain places. Here on Parcel 1, the building types are what are referred to as either building type B or C. B is a mid-rise mixed use, and C are essentially building type Bs with the potential for towers. There are standards around how tall these buildings can be. The frontage along Lake Avenue have to be a maximum of 4 stories, a minimum of 2. The minimum height of the 2-story building would be 30 feet from on the interior, from the floor on the first floor to the ceiling on the second. On River Street side, they can be as tall as 5 stories. Those standards remain in terms of the dimensions. And then their towers are permitted that would be a maximum of 12 stories on the Lake Avenue side and 13 on the River Street side. Setbacks are required, of course. They have to be, pardon me while I look for that note. Oh yes, they have to be stepped back 30 feet from the building line of the podium or the base portion of the building, and they can only be 40. The floor area can only be 40% of the bottom footprint building, the podium portion of the building. If for some reason you decide to pursue a tower proposal and put it in the H or U shape, the distance between those building portions that are parallel, so like on a U, you'd have the 2 wings that would be parallel to one another. They have to be 75 feet apart. All of this is laid out in the code. So in terms of the civic square itself, the intention for this is to be a heavily foot trafficked area that is a big draw for people, that allows them to be there, that has both uses in the buildings and enticements in the outside that are meant to draw people in and through and back and forth from the marina to the beach and all the other amenities in the general area. There are standards around viewpoints that are in the code. Most of that territory is supposed to be, or is required to be paved to a certain extent. It must be at least 65% paved, in fact. Asphalt's prohibited. Pervious pavement is preferred to permit the thriving of landscaping that would be expected in there. So those are the sorts of things that we're looking for there. The sloping of it, of course, has to be graded to meet current ADA standards for accessible design. So that space there is really intended to be a significant draw to the area that has people wanting to come up to be there to visit that place, to experience the other people that are congregating there. There are some minimum dimensions. My sense is that the diagram may be a little bit off from a scale perspective, because the dimensions for that space, of course, as you can see, are basically the width from right-of-way on Lake Ave to right-of-way on North River. And then the what would basically be the southern line of the building fronting Corrigan, has to be no more than 150 feet from the Corrigan line. And the same is true from port side on the other side. So that block, as I measured it, is approximately 600 feet. And so we're looking at essentially a minimum of 300 feet along Lake Ave for the civic area. So it's meant to be a significant portion of that block, and played a really important part in the development. And I encourage you all, if you haven't yet, to thoroughly read the that section on the Marina District. It's very detailed and gives very specific direction on the expectations in terms of building style, size, bulk, appearance, materials, what have you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Wes. Moving along here, I just wanted to say a few words about how, again, the evolution of the Port of Rochester really has been through the efforts of partnerships, right? And in this case, what we're featuring here is the Charlotte Community Association's efforts to revitalize the Port of Rochester. And we just wanted to highlight, again, this is all in the RFP document itself, with links to these documents and contacts. Their 2017 community charrette that was held, very well attended, very successful in its goals and objectives, to get folks out and really sort of try to rethink their community and the potential that it has. And then since then, there was actually 2 iterations of a visioning process with associated document. What we're showing here is the most recent iteration, which was completed earlier this year, which very, very comprehensive and very informative as far as what the Charlotte Community Association has put forth for their preferences for how to revitalize the Port of Rochester. And again, I just want to stress that all this is linked to in the RFP document itself, to the reports, and as well as the appropriate contact information for the Charlotte Community Association. With that, I think we're ready to get into the questions that hopefully have been coming through. And I'll open it up to Lindsay Nabozny to relay those questions. And we, as the panelists, will do our best to answer those questions for you.
I will say that so far there are no questions, but there is the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to enter any questions that you may have, and we will read them aloud and answer them to the best of our abilities. I'll give it a few minutes.
Great. Sorry, I did not bring any music for this portion of the presentation.
Do, 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 do.
Come on, Wes, isn't that cliche?
Well, story of my life.
All right,
Yeah.
we've got our first question. Um, who won the last RFP and why did it not move forward?
Well, I guess I can speak to that. There was an RFP for this site issued originally in 2013, which really was right off. It was off the coattails of all of the planning and the engineering, all the thoughtfulness that went into creating this district and teeing this site up for redevelopment. The entity that was selected is Edgewater Development, and their proposal, um, as I recall, and I full disclosure, I was not part of the process of the project back then, but I believe it was a fully compliant project as far as the zoning code which was, as Wes mentioned, fairly prescriptive. And it was a mixed use project that had a lot of waterfront related sort of features, hotel, there were residential units and commercial uses. Um, Essentially, the project did not move forward after some time due to the source of financing that the developer was seeking. It was unfortunately there was a hold up at the federal level on the specific sources that they were seeking that um, resulted in the project not moving forward.
All right, next question. Can you talk about the tax incentives available for the project?
Well, I'll take a start at that, and perhaps Rick, you can correct anything I say that's incorrect. But really, I think maybe the best response would be that although we have standard, and special pilot abatements that are available to facilitate development, what we would ask is that when you develop your proposal and provide appropriate documentation of the financing, that you that you maybe make a proposal for what you would need in order to make your project work. But we can certainly point you to some of the available programs on our that are available on our website. Perhaps we can put that in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I would just really echo that, and because really it's sort of wide open at this point, right? Because we don't know what's being proposed, and as many of you developers are aware, there are a range of tax incentive programs based on use and financing, that kind of thing. So I would say do your due diligence and come up with what you feel is best and most viable, and let us know.
Will support from the municipality be available for environmental cleanup?
And I'm inclined to let or to ask Harold Thurston to speak to this, but I think I would, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Harold. I don't know that cleanup per se is at play here, and if that's accurate, Harold, please let folks know what I mean by that. And if it's not accurate, you can just kick me under the table.
No, I think that's accurate. I don't see this as an environmental cleanup. I see this as an effort to make the site suitable for development from a geotechnical standpoint, not from an environmental standpoint. And if the developer wants to come up with a plan to make a suitable foundation for whatever development they're doing, and it does not involve the excavation of regulated material, there are other engineering options in which they can do, then there would be, in that case, not any quote unquote cleanup. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't see it as an environmental cleanup. I see it as a geotechnical issue, making the site suitable for development.
Thank you, Harold. And I'm sorry, I just saw it come up on the screen. Lindsay, do you want to just say a word or two about what you just provided on the screen?
Yes, I'm just posting a link to the city assessments assessment bureau's website that has some links to various commercial property exemptions. I'm also going to post a link to Comida's incentives, so the County of Monroe and what they have to offer. But I think what Rick said is very, very accurate. Those of you who have worked with us in housing before know that we have some assessment exemptions available for either affordable housing or for market rate projects that include some percentage of affordable housing. I would say just keep in touch with us and with the county, and we should be able to point you in the right direction depending on what project you decide to ultimately propose.
Thank you, Lindsay. And I know that, for example, the County of Monroe, the link that you have just put up, as well as some other, resources for information related to potential assistance. Those links are also provided within the RFP document as well, towards the end.
All right, next question. What would be the anticipated income level of the new residents? Would the community association welcome workforce housing?
Well, as far as the income level of potential new residents of a development, that would be something that the developer would propose what their rent mix would be. If a development was pursuing a pilot arrangement with the city, we do have requirements for a minimum of 20% of housing units to be set aside for residents at 60% of the area median income. So that would be a potential requirement that would be involved in one of the, if a development were to be seeking city assistance. I wouldn't speak for the community association. I don't know if Rick, you have anything to add on that.
I don't. Again, I think what's key here is what the developer feels is the highest and best use here, given the guidance provided in the RP, and certainly, discussing this within the context of the community and certainly the community, the Charlotte Community Association.
All right, next question. The RFP places emphasis on using electric rather than gas. Past efforts in the Charlotte area revealed the lack of natural gas for large-scale development. What is the current plan for RG&E to improve or upgrade gas to the port area?
That's a great question. What we tried to emphasize in the RFP is that really that discussion needs to happen between the respondent and RG&E and to find out. So this is in a bigger context, right? This is in the context of the state of New York putting emphasis on backing away from natural gas for new development. And that's where we are right now. And this RFP acknowledges that, but also really promotes and recommends that the developer entity has that discussion with the contact provided for RG&E to see what it would take based on what you are proposing to get the the required capacities for those loads.
Okay, next up. Does the city still intend to build the second lobe of the marina?
Also a good question. I believe there's nothing in our capital plan at this time to expand the marina out to its full second phase size. I believe there's still some things that have to be overcome in order to make that happen, including the relocation of the boat launch, if I'm not mistaken, but a little outside of my area of expertise. So all I could say is not at this time, but is surely a promising development at some point in the future. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add.
And I'll move on to the next one. A major component of the Fast Ferry's failure was the lack of wayfinding and marketing signage plan that at a minimum brought visitors from 104 to the neighborhood. Would the city agree or commit to a budget line item to promote Charlotte's attributes?
I think we'd be open to a conversation if there's ideas for how to draw drivers from 104 or other points to the Charlotte area. I was involved a long time ago in a project that installed dynamic message signs on the expressways and nearby arterials to inform traffic of parking and traffic issues in the port area. So there's some experience with that, but I'm sure we'd be open to proposals.
Would the city entertain demolition of the Link building and relocation of marina and boater services to the new project?
I don't think we have an answer on that at this time. The Link building is in use. Paul, if you're still on the call and you have anything to say about the Link building, please do feel free, but we have no plans at this time.
Yeah, I'll follow what you just said, Eric. We don't have any plans on it. It's never actually even been brought up for discussion internally. I think at this point we'd be pretty reluctant to do it because it would probably, I mean, we would probably have the discussion if there was a way to do it that did not disrupt the existing operations of what is a pretty successful business. Like anybody else, like any other entity, if it was, you know, if there was some financial incentive or something that would be a community-driven benefit, I think the city would consider it. But we'd be otherwise, with absent of that, we'd be very reluctant to see that take place because, again, we have a very stable and successful entity there, and we wouldn't want to do anything intentionally that would impact that adversely.
Okay, next up. Can you explain the design review process? Is this through PRC? You mentioned no public hearing.
Yeah, so and what I was speaking to was especially or really primarily for the approval process for the selected winner. So I'm not speaking to any sort of review of proposals in terms of determining who might be selected as the winner of this process. So from the perspective of the selected proposal that is then winding its way through site plan, what my earlier comments meant to communicate were that it is possible for a proposal to be fully code compliant with the Marina District design guidelines and any other guidelines such as the citywide design standards that are in the code. And in those instances, that would make that process or that project review a minor site plan review, which does not have to go to PRC, doesn't have to go to REC. And presumably, if it's, if the proposal is, lining up with the size of the buildings that are prescribed in the design guidelines in these sections of the code, they wouldn't need any sort of a variance, any sort of a special permit. So it's quite possible for it to be a minor site plan review only, which is an administrative process. And then if there are variances from, or that if there are design elements of a proposal that do not meet the design requirements in the citywide design standards, that might put them into major site plan review, which then is still an administrative process, but would require a trip to PRC for a recommendation from that body to the manager of zoning. So that is the intent of my comments, that it's mostly administrative unless there's something about the design that would require it go before one of the land use boards, such as Planning Commission or ZBA.
Okay. Next up. There has been a lot of community concern about eliminating parking currently available on that site. Will there be a requirement to exceed parking requirements beyond the use involved in the planned project?
I believe the RFP identifies that as a concern and a preference for developers to provide or account for parking that would be displaced by the development, but not a requirement. We want proposals to explain how they're treating parking, and if they are going to be accounting for the displaced parking, how they intend to do so.
And for what it's worth, again, the district really is promoting multimodal transportation options. So
does the city have market studies supporting the year-round demand for the uses it is seeking?
Rick, are there any market work done in the past?
I think we would have to check that out, go back and look at the planning, the due diligence and studies that were done as part of the original district and see what's there. I'm just thinking out loud right now. I know that the seeker documentation that was provided in the RFP, there may be a piece there on marketing, market analysis. Offhand though, we'd have to look into that a little bit more.
Safe to say though that one of the goals for redevelopment of this parcel would be to create a more year-round destination by having more activity at the site, including having people that are living or staying on this site, adding to the customer base that's available to support our businesses year-round.
And thank you, Eric. Another point here is that even with the inclusion of some piece of market analysis or study within prior documentation, the timing of that was, 2000, I don't know, maybe 10, let's say, leading up to this first RFP in 2013. Someone could argue it's fairly in need of updating since then, and we would very much encourage a respondent to take a look at that as part of their own due diligence for their proposal.
That was the last question. I apologize because my dogs just started barking, but if anybody has anything else, if you want to submit it now, and if not,
What was your dog trying to ask a question?
yeah, they're definitely going to respond to the RFP. So, lots of ideas.
Dog bark.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very excited. I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, well, if there are no further questions, we can advance to the next slide. As a reminder, proposals are due by 4:00 p.m. on Monday, January 29th. As for a timeline, an interdepartmental team will be reviewing the proposals received, shortlisting any preferred proposals, and scheduling interviews with those, ultimately resulting in a selection likely in spring of 2024. An RFP and related information is available on the website as shown on your screen, cityofrochester.gov/portsite-RFP. If there are no further comments or questions, this is my contact information. I'll be the person you're submitting proposals to. And if you do have any follow-up questions, please feel free to contact me prior to the deadline. With that, thank you to my fellow panelists from the city for your participation and responses to the questions that were received. And thank you to Lindsay for facilitating and to Bill Schwabiger for helping to set this up. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining us. And we look forward to receiving your proposals. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.